You listening to us on the Newsly app? If not, you should be. Check it out, newsly.me.
This episode is powered by Airdrie DQ Grill and Chill. Owned and operated by local entrepreneurs. Check out one of their 3 Airdrie locations today and pick up a blizzard, ice cream cake, or dilly bar. The Biz Dojo is also brought to you by Beyond a Beaten Path. If you're on the lookout for a personalized gift, head to beyondabeatenpath.ca and get started on your custom creation. Beyond a Beaten Path. Personalize it. Because everything else is boring.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about in this?
I'm just going to talk.
Well, all right.
All right. Did you know that he made that up on the spot?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this.
Mm-hmm. I knew it then, and I know it now.
You were there on set?
Yep. He was like, what should I say? Should I say, okay? And I was like, no, man. All right.
All right.
He's like, that's good. Thanks. I'm like, make a career out of it, buddy. That'll be my reward.
So glad you were there for that inspiring moment in pop culture. So I was not expecting our friend Jamie Smart to start reciting 50 Cent quotes. But that might have been the highlight of this podcast.
There's a couple highlights. There's actually a time or two in this second part of our first 2-parter where you say, that might be my new favorite thing.
Oh, when we talked about we're just animals with shoes.
Yes. We are all just animals with shoes.
We could really call this second part like stories with Jamie. I think that's where we ended up, and we just felt like it was so.
It felt like its own episode. It felt like we started talking about coaching and stress and like it was all part of the same conversation. You hear them together and it flows, but there was just something about this second half that felt like it deserved its own space.
Yeah, I remember when we got off the Zoom and I was just like, I don't want to bury this second half. You know, people listen to the first bit and then they, kind of meander on with their lives. I'm like, this is too good. This is too good.
Yeah, I
wanted you to do more editing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the nice thing though is Jamie is so well spoken that there's not a lot of editing little. It's mostly editing me and you, making sure that we're not leaving. There was a lot of time where we left a lot of space after Jamie said something, and I could just leave it because I'm sure listeners are experiencing the same thing we were at the time, which was, wow, I don't even know what to say to that because it was just so inspiring or insightful, or we just needed a moment to catch ourselves before we could come up with our next part of the conversation.
It was like a surreal experience when you're just sitting there. And maybe it was because like for the 3 days prior to, I'd been listening to podcasts. I'd re-listened to The Little Book of Clarity on Audible. If you haven't checked that out, highly recommend it. And then you're just sitting there with Jamie and he's telling these stories. And I was just mesmerized, like to your point, where I was like, I don't know what to say right now, but like, I want this to go on forever. Let's just keep talking.
Well, and like all of the context of all of those things that he's worked on, and he's still that captivating when he talks. Like it didn't go a direction. Like it's not, some speakers they'll tell the same stories or they'll give the same anecdotes over and over again. And that's what they rely on to help their message. Jamie doesn't need that. He's so well defined and what he's so clear on clarity that he just every situation.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me the author of Clarity has clarity?
Yes.
When he speaks?
He does.
Yeah.
It seems the methods work.
No, this was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. And like I said, I just was not expecting to be dropping 50 quotes, talking about animals with shoes, i.e. humans, the whole drunk guy in the dark, like just a bunch of stories that not only did I really like, but selfishly I can take a bunch from those and share them like I came up with them. So that's what I'm excited about.
I have this story about this guy in the dark.
Yeah, awesome. So,
let's just get into it.
You just want to get into it this week?
Let's just go.
Let's go.
This is part 2 of a 2-part conversation with Jamie Smart.
I think one of the things JP and I get asked a lot as we've started to take steps into this whole coaching space is like, oh, well, what kind of coaching do you do? Who do you help? Like, what's your niche? What's your this? What's your that? And every time I think I figure that out, I'm like, it totally gets thrown on its head. And like what I've landed at, like I've had a client who's 23 years old and has dreams of playing in the NBA. And I've had some of the most profound conversations of my life. I have a client who's a 35-year-old mom who works at a veterinarian that's trying to figure out what the next step of her life is. And like completely different realities, completely different situations. But it just comes back to helping people, like creating space to help people. That's where I've landed. Like it could be anyone with anything. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just curious, like, what's your take on like getting a very specific like niche or type of coaching or versus like just being open to helping people?
I think the search for a niche is probably one of the things that really messes a lot of coaches up when they're first starting out. Because when you're first starting out, you don't know enough about yourself and who you like working with and what you're good at and what you're not good at and all that sort of thing to choose a niche well, in my experience. And so I think what works way, way better is just having lots of conversations with different people and seeing what emerges. Now, it can be useful to do what I call choosing an experimental audience. Like if you want to learn some of the skills of, marketing or engagement and that sort of thing, it can be useful to have an experimental audience to do that with. But the other thing I've seen happens to a lot of coaches when they're asked to come up with a niche is they think they've got to identify themselves with it. They've got to go from being, Jamie or Bob or Steve to being the confidence coach or the, Saturday morning shakes coach or the public speaking to groups of people over 60, 67 coach. And it's like they're still learning to occupy the identity of being a coach. And now they're being asked to kind of shoehorn themselves into some idea that they're not even sure it's going to work yet, right? Because it's speculative. So I think what I've seen with almost every coach I know who has a kind of well-articulated niche that they're serving in a successful way is they were almost always successful coaches first, and their niche kind of found them. They realized over time, oh, you know what? I really love working with entrepreneurs, or I really love working with authors, or I really love working with this group of people. So for instance, I love working with coaches and therapists and trainers. I understand that group of people so well. But when I started out, I didn't have a niche and I wasn't really looking for one. I was doing the stuff that I was interested in and passionate about. And then I got a feel for it. Now, here's the thing. A marketing specialist could say, oh, yeah, but if you'd nailed that niche 2 years earlier, you could have made this much more profit. I'm sure that's probably true. But I got into this work because I love doing stuff I'm passionate about. And I love the adventure and I love the feeling of it and that sort of thing. So I think the other thing is, I think a lot of times coaches are drawn to coaching because it's a calling. They're called to do this work. They feel inspired by it. And understandably, they want to make decent money from it. And that's absolutely fine. But then they try and apply approaches. Like if you stop and think about it, almost every coach values connection and relationship and authenticity and integrity and honesty and that sort of thing. A lot of times people are trying to use approaches and techniques that are the opposite of that to build their business. It's like, well, that's not going to work. You got to do stuff that connects with your values and what matters to you. My rule of thumb for coaches when it comes to the whole how do you build your business thing is the more you can make any sales or marketing type activities you do like what you already love doing, the more it's like coaching, the more like I love, one of my favorite things in the whole world to do that I'm really, really good at is coaching people in front of a group. I call it laser coaching. So I'll get a group of people and I'll coach people one after the other, and I'll unpack the coaching I'm doing. So the more I can make the marketing activities an expression of that kind of stuff and working with groups and that sort of thing, the more enjoyable it is, because they get the experience of you doing something you're great at rather than you doing something you don't like doing or something like that. So make it like the stuff you already love doing. Like you guys, I can tell you enjoy doing podcasts. So it would make sense that as coaches, you want to make some of your promotional activities aligned with your podcasting skills and talents, like obviously, because you already are good at it. You already enjoy it. You already have a platform for it. So for instance,
I think a lot of people default to what have I done in my career? Like for you, I don't think that you ever had the thought that you wanted to be like an IT leadership coach as a niche, but I think it's where people go.
Well, it's funny though, when I first started out, when I was first retraining, I thought, well, I guess maybe I could train people in project management. And so I went and tried that. I ran a couple of project management trainings in the company I was working in. But pretty soon I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go and try other things and that sort of thing. So I think the number one thing I'd say to any coach and anyone actually who's wanting to start a business, experiment, try things out. Don't try and figure it all out first. Like we're much better at experimenting and tinkering and doing things than we are at figuring stuff out in the privacy of our own heads. Because when you experiment and take action and do stuff, you get real world feedback, and we learn. We're built for reality, and we learn from real world feedback. So try stuff, experiment, and have fun with it, right? Like it doesn't cost any extra to have fun.
One of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember, I think it's Brene Brown, the word Brene, anyway, something to the effect of us being more afraid of our light than the dark. Like, and I think this is an interesting thought. Like, and I guess, do you think it's true? Like, do people get caught up in fear of failure, fear of not being successful, or fear that, hey, this might actually work out, and then like getting overwhelmed with the thought of like doing really well? Or what do you see? Do you see kind of a combination of those things? Or
I think there are a couple of things. I think some people have fear of failure. Some people have fear of success. A lot of people have fear of criticism. A lot of people have fear of the unknown and uncertainty. I once asked a teacher what the most powerful force in human beings was. And this guy had asked Virginia Satir, who was sort of the grandmother of family therapy, the same question. He said, well, I asked Virginia Satir that question, and she said, the most powerful force in human beings is the desire for the familiar. I was like, how do you like that? It's like, and I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, people do like things to be pretty much the same as they were yesterday, but maybe a little bit different. And so I noticed that and it stands to reason actually that we have because the familiar has a proven track record, right? Like you may think, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that or the other, but what you did yesterday at least got you safely to today. Whereas doing all kinds of other stuff, maybe not. So I thought, well, that's an interesting idea that's because she thought that was what kept people stuck, that's what kept people changing. So anytime I met a new teacher, I would ask them this question: what's the most powerful force in human beings? And people either didn't have answers or had variations on familiarity. And then I was speaking to one of my mentors, Christina Hall, who is very brilliant. I told her this story and I said, what do you think the most powerful force in human being is? And she said, well, I know one more powerful than familiarity. I said, what's that? She said, purpose. The desire for purpose and direction can inspire us to transcend the desire for familiarity. So I thought that was real interesting. But then I think about that Marianne Williams. I think it may be the Marianne Williamson quote that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, our darkness, frightens us. I think she's talking about something a little different. And I think it's this. I think that this is just my theory, right? But the fact of the matter is, I believe that the two most valuable things a person can discover are number one, how experience is created. We're living in the experience of this principle of thought taking form in the moment. And number two, who we really are. And it's my assertion that who we really are is this incredible source of creativity and wisdom and intelligence and love and resilience and beauty. And can see examples of it all over the place. But we're born into a world and we're, enculturated and raised being told that we're not that we're, we're stupid or we're clever or we're lazy or we're head of the class or bottom of the class. So we get all these labels, all these ideas of ourselves. So, there's one that each of us uses. You use a label which is Seth and Jamie. So say, I am Jamie, or I am Seth, or I am angry, or I'm happy, or I'm sad. So we're saying all these I ams. And we think that on some level, who we are is a conglomeration of those labels, those ideas about ourselves. But here's the thing: we're not our ideas of ourselves. Right? Those ideas, they're just a map, and you wouldn't confuse a map of New York with New York City, or a map of London with London. But we often confuse our map of ourselves with who we really are, and how it looks to me is that who we really are is this incredible power, is this incredible creative energy. And we've been told, most of us from very early ages, that it's not okay to be that we should be something else or somebody else, that we shouldn't just show up and call it like we see it and be ourselves. And there's a wonderful quote by Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent. He said, 50, he said, I can see my book results on the shelf over there, but I'll pull it up on screen because it gets quoted in the introduction. Let me just see. I want to read the whole thing, if I may.
Please.
Because
anytime someone's going to bust out a 50 quote on the pod, they can have all the time and space. I love it.
All right. So I came across this. I was reading a wonderful book written by 50 Cent and Robert Greene called The 50th Law. 50 Cent says, the greatest fear people have is that of being themselves. They want to be 50 Cent or someone else. They do what everyone else does, even if it doesn't fit where and who they are. But you get nowhere that way. Your energy is weak. No one pays attention to you. You're running away from the one thing that you own. What makes you different? I lost that fear. And once I felt the power that I had by showing the world I didn't care about being like other people, I could never go back. Now, to me, that's what she's talking about in that quote. She's talking about the fact that each of us have been born into this world with a unique pattern of who we really are to bring into being. And then we get enculturated and we get conditioned to believe that we need to conform and fit in. And there are good reasons for that societally. Like society needs people to kind of toe the party line, right? And so and this is often the case, when you go to start your own business or go to do your own thing, you'll get family and friends and society pushing back, saying, "Oh, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't be different. You should do what everyone else is doing." And sure, but it looks to me like that's where our power is. It's in being ourselves. It's in being true to ourselves. However weird that may be, however eccentric that may be, however divergent from the societal norm that may be, that's where the action is. So I think that's what people are scared of. When they're scared of success or scared of failure or that sort of thing. Well, that's certainly what they're scared of when it comes to success. When it comes to failure, they're not really. Can I tell a story?
Oh, please.
So I was speaking at a conference in the UK called the S3E14 UK conference. It's a big conference, but a bunch of people there. And I'm doing a coaching demo at the front of the room. So I'm coaching this woman who I'd never met before out of the audience. And she's sitting in the front of the room with me. And so I said, what do you want? She said, well, I'm working on my business, she said, and I keep procrastinating. I keep, she was doing the business equivalent of coloring in her timetable kind of thing. So I keep procrastinating. And she said, the reason is, she said, when I'm thinking about my business and thinking about the future, I get scared. And so I procrastinate rather than working on it. And then she says, I know I shouldn't. She says, I get worried that it's not going to work out. Okay, that I'm going to fail. She goes, and I know I should be telling myself that it's not going to fail and I'm going to be successful and all that sort of stuff. She said, but sometimes I get scared that it won't work out. So I said, well, let me fix that for you. I said, it might not work out the way you think it's going to. She's like, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to tell me it's going to work out. I said, no, are you kidding me? Have you seen how many businesses fail? It might not work out. I said, that's not the issue. She's like, it's not? I said, no, the issue is you don't think you'd be able to handle it if it didn't work out. And you would. You can handle it. You're built for reality. You have a source of resilience and creativity within you that can totally handle it. That might be the best thing that ever happens to you. You might have it not work out the way you're thinking, and then something new comes along and you pivot and it's a huge success. The issue isn't that it might not work out a certain way. The issue is you don't believe you could handle it unless it works out the way you want it to. And it's not true. It's not true. Sid Banks, who I referenced at the beginning of the session, once said, if the one thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. You can handle it. We're built for reality. The fact that we're even here having this conversation means everyone listening to this has evolved from a long line of people who managed to at least survive until breeding age, hook up with someone at least once and produce a kid who did the same thing over and over and over again, millions of times in a row, over millions of years. And so in a very intangible way, we're built for reality. We've evolved for life on this planet. We're far more, we live in a world where at the moment people are being told in all kinds of ways that, they're easily harmed by things that people say and that they need safe spaces and that sort of thing. Are you fucking kidding me? We're animals with shoes on and we've got claws and teeth, and we've evolved for a world that's rough. Until the last couple of 100 years, man, the murder rate in London was 35 times higher than it is now, even 200 years ago. We're built for a tough world, and we're getting the message that we're very, very, we need to be wrapped in cotton wool and all this sort of stuff, and it is bullshit. We're built for reality. We can handle it, and the more we realize that, the more we realize that we can handle what we might define as failure or success or anything else that comes our way. We're built for reality.
We're animals with shoes on might be my new favorite.
Hey everyone, if you didn't already know, this episode is sponsored by searchhustle.com, your resource for digital marketing training. It's taught by digital marketers at the bleeding edge, for digital marketers at the bleeding edge, business owners, and fresh marketing grads. And it's free for a limited time at searchhustle.com/beta-group. That's BETA-GROUP. The holidays are coming. If you're looking for that special something for that special someone, it's time to go beyond the beaten path. Visit beyondabeatenpath.ca for unique and custom gifts that say, I didn't wait until the last minute to think of you and get you this thing that you don't need. Beyondabeatenpath.ca, because everything else is boring.
So we do a weekly questions with Mama Seth. So my mom provides a question. She had some feedback that we needed to incorporate listeners more, so I've put her on the spot. And so her question for you, Jamie, is hey, Jamie, I'm a CEO of a small company, and we're heading into our busy season. They create custom gifts, and Christmas is their crazy time, so they get slammed with a bunch of orders. How can I get through this Christmas season and manage my stress load? Because the last few years have been really tough on me. And do you have any tips or tricks on how I can get through it?
Well, the thing that occurs to me is that the busy season's going to be busy, right? And she knows that heading into the busy season. So the issue isn't. It seems to me there are two things. There's the volume of activity, right? And that's going to be high, and so that's going to be engaging. But my guess is that the experience of stress, that's going to be coming from some like, I don't know the specifics, but it's going to be some variation of things aren't going to be okay unless everything goes perfectly. But I bet that if she looks back to previous busy seasons, a bunch of stuff has gone well and a bunch of stuff has gone badly, but she's made it through to the next year and the next year. So my question to her is, after the busy season's over and she's looking back, is she going to be stressed then? Because if she's not, maybe she doesn't need to be stressed in the process either. Now, here's the thing. We all get stressed sometimes. That's natural. But I guess the other tip would be, this is something she can do. It's not a technique per se. She could always ask herself, where do I believe my experience is coming from? Because I bet that in the moment, it'll seem like the experience of stress is coming from a delayed order or an angry customer or an increase in shipping costs or a employee who calls in sick or it'll genuinely seem like it's coming from somewhere other than inside. Right? In that moment, if you ask yourself, but it's asking yourself with a sense of genuine wonder, where do I believe that experience is coming from? If you genuinely wonder about that, you'd be amazed at what happens. So she can try it out and let me know.
We've talked about this before, but it's like I'm just putting together now. One of the things that my mother used to do for me, we're on the mother topic. I don't know if that was intentional here.
Maybe Jamie's got a mom story he can share
too.
We'll see.
We'll jam on the mums for a while here. But my mom used to always say, there's two types of things in the world. There's the things that you can do something about and you don't need to worry about them because you can do something about them. And then there's the things you can't and you don't need to worry about them because there's nothing you can do about them. And I think that set me up internally for making those associations and having that insight and knowing that whatever I'm experiencing right now, I don't need to stress about it because I can either do something about it or I can't. And in either case, the stress doesn't matter. And I think that's put me in a really good position. But as I hear other people's stories, I'm like, wow, I wish I could transfer that to them in some way.
Well, here's the funny thing. I think you hit the nail on the head, JP. Sorry. I would be willing to make a prediction. Your mom wasn't much of a warrior. Is that correct? She didn't worry much.
Yeah, not a ton. Well, I mean, she's a mom, so she worried, but I think she probably far less than most mothers. Yes.
My guess is you picked up on that because while the things she told you, I really like that. What you'll have learned most from is how she related to life. And so I guess the other thing I'd have to say to Seth's mom is typically when people have stress, it's often either related to the future or the past. And in those moments, it genuinely seems like those feelings of stress are coming from future circumstances. And if you can just take a moment to go, again, where does it seem like that's coming from? Does it seem like it's coming from the future? It's like, yeah, it's like, well, guess what? The future doesn't even exist. It's a psychological construct, which is strange, right? Like we know that on one level, but on another level, we genuinely act as though our feelings are giving us information about the future. It's not possible. It's not possible. There's no such thing as the future. But while it looks real to us, it'll seem like our experience is coming from that. Can I give you an example to kind of bring this to life?
Yes, absolutely.
Like Seth, if a tiger walked into your office right now, right, you would become very, very obsessed with the tiger. You're like, you wouldn't take your eyes off it. All your attention would be there. And you would be thinking about, what can I do to get safely out of the office? How am I going to do this? You wouldn't be able to hear a word I'm saying because you'd be paying attention to that tiger in a very, very focused way.
It's a very small room. So yes, that was,
yeah, I guarantee it. And that's natural and that's normal and that's healthy. That's because you're built for reality and you have come from a long line of people who didn't get eaten by tigers because they made good choices in that decision. And part of that good choice was don't ignore the tiger. So when something is now, if an imaginary tiger walked into your room, you're not going to pay much attention to it because you know it's not real. Like if I said, hey, Seth, I've just dreamed up a tiger and I'm sending it round to your office right now. Be very afraid. You're not going to buy it because you know I'm just bullshitting, right? So that's you can tell the difference between a real tiger and an imaginary tiger. The problem people have with stress is they can't tell the difference between a real future and an imaginary future. They get stressed about the future and they believe that feeling is giving them information about the future. It looks real to them. And so it can be very arresting to realize, oh no, that's a mind-made construct. As soon as you realize it's not real, we as human beings, we're very interested in stuff that's real and have very little time for stuff that looks irrelevant.
Just to build on that a little bit, I know it's funny because in my last coaching session, Justin was talking quite a bit about the form and the formless. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a big part of your book. And I'm still like trying to wrap my head around this. JP and I had a little bit of a banter back and forth about this. Could you maybe just share a little bit about like how formless becomes formed energy and like the whole construct of that?
I'll give you my take on it. But I'm going to use metaphors because the formless has no form. So if you've ever played a DVD, like my favorite movie is Fight Club, right? So if I get the DVD of Fight Club, does anyone even have DVD players? For this metaphor, we need DVD players. If I get the DVD of Fight Club, I can put it in the DVD player. I can play it up, and I get totally engaged in the film. And there's Tyler Durden, and it's all happening. But actually, what I can see on the screen, it's totally an illusion. That's just light on a screen. An illusion, but it's tangible. Like there's a plot arc and there's characters in it, and I can engage with it. I can watch it and I get totally drawn into that reality. Now, the DVD, if I pull that out and I look at it, it's just little dots on a silver disc. It's not very entertaining at all. It's very dull compared to the movie. It's less tangible, but it's more real. That disc with dots on it is what gives rise to the movie on the screen. But it's not got much in this metaphor. There's not much information that I could enjoy on that disc. The tangible illusion is more engaging than the intangible reality. And so with the understanding that I teach is that we live in a world of form, which is tangible, but it's not where our experience is coming from. Our experience is coming from a deeper reality that's intangible, but far more real. It's far more real. And because, there's this old joke about a drunk guy on a Saturday night. It's like 2 a.m, and he's on his hands and knees, in the grass by the edge of a lamppost, and he's looking around in the grass, and clearly pissed drunk. And this policeman comes walking up to him, and he goes, "What's up?" And the guy goes, I'm looking for my keys." And so the cop's like, "Okay, well, I'll help you find them." He goes, "Where did you drop them?" He goes, "Couple of streets over." And the cop's like, "Well, why are you looking here?" The guy goes, "The light's a lot better here." Well, we tend to look for the things we want, like, fulfillment and love and success and joy and confidence and peace and security. We tend to look for them in the world of form. That's why I was looking for them in Whistler. We look for them in accomplishments, or in money, or in relationships, or in jobs, or in six-pack abs, or whatever. The light, because the light's so good there. But that's not where they come from. They come from within. They come from an intangible domain, somewhere less tangible but more real, that resides at the heart of everyone's being. And this is the gift of gifts that people have been referring to throughout the ages. The pearl of consciousness, or the wisdom that resides within. It's there in everybody, but the light's not so good there. So it's easier to look in 7 Top Tips, or a yoga retreat, or whatever it might be. But it's always, you can't find something where it isn't, right? So everyone, what everyone's looking for is that which resides at the heart of their own being. But we innocently get tricked into looking where it isn't.
Oh, the hours I've spent under that lamppost, I tell you.
Me too, right? Me too. I feel very grateful to even, the funny thing is, I feel very grateful even to know where it is, Not that I'm always looking there, not that my attention is always there, but just knowing, no matter, there's another wonderful, I think it's a Spanish proverb. It goes like this: no matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, turn back. And I go down the wrong roads regularly. I go looking where it isn't. But because I know where it is, at any point I go, oh yeah, turn back. So yeah.
That's, I think, a hard thing for a lot of people.
Me too.
Yeah, it's like, I've already put all this energy, time, money, whatever into this thing. I got to see it through. And I mean, the other side of that is, you don't know. Like, maybe you're this far away from the thing.
Indeed. But I can relate. I built a very successful NLP business looking in the other direction. I saw this. I'm like, oh, turn back.
When you know, you know.
Exactly.
This has been absolutely inspiring, Jamie. And I guess a couple of things on the way out of here. What are you working on for personal development, and how are you feeding your mind?
Well, it's funny you ask that. I wrote a post just the other day, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I love my work. And my desire is to have a business where every aspect of the business feels as good as the work I do with people, the impact we have with our clients. So that's kind of a new inspiration to me, to make every aspect of the business as pristine as the impact we have in our trainings and with our clients. And so I've got a saying, which is, the feeling you're doing business in is all you get. The experience you're doing business in is all you get. So that's my kind of yoga now, is that I'm doing an adventure to find out what happens when I make that our number one priority, our number one value. is to be bringing the feeling and the ethos of everything we bring to our clients into every aspect of our work and business. So that's kind of that's what I'm oriented towards at the moment. In terms of my own development, I put a weight room in my garage about a year into lockdown. I suddenly figured that one out. So I love lifting heavy. I love working out on the Olympic bar and stuff, and doing a bit of yoga. In terms of other development, really just looking within. And I always have coaches and teachers that I'm working with to continue developing, but it's really just seeing more of this and then bringing that into my life and my business and my work.
Amazing. And for those, and then you've got Clarity 2 that you're working on as well?
Yeah, the second edition of Clarity is going to be coming out next year. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably record the audiobook version of that because a lot of that will have changed from the first editions. So yeah, looking forward to doing that.
That's exciting. I can't wait to dive into that, and hopefully be a pleasure to have you back on the show once that drops.
I'd love to. And then other stuff we've got going in. We've got our Clarity certification training, which runs January to July. So we're over half full for that, but we're looking for the other people who are going to join us on that journey. And running some master classes and that sort of thing. Lots of fun.
Incredible. And how can people learn more about the Clarity certification and all that other stuff you're working on?
I mean, you find everything at jamiesmart.com, JAMIESMART.com. If you want to find out about Clarity certification, go to jamiesmart.com/coach. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter. My handle is JamieSmartCom. And I've got a couple of podcasts, the Get Clarity podcast and the Thriving Coaches podcast. I'm guessing that your listeners like podcasts, so the podcast might be a good place to start.
I hope so.
Yeah. And then my books are on Amazon and on Audible. There's audiobooks of 3 of the 4 of them already on Amazon. So yeah, all the usual places.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, Jamie. This was awesome.
Oh, it's been great to meet you both. Lovely to meet you, Seth. Lovely to meet you, JP.
I have like 10 pages of notes, so this is...
Oh, man. I tried to just be here and like fully absorb, so I didn't take as many notes, but that was amazing. Thank you.
Right on.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode.
If you like what you heard today and you'd like to tap into your inner wisdom, check us out on thebizdojo.com, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook.
Or send us a message for a free discovery session to coaching@thebizdojo.com.
We hope to hear from you soon. See you next week.